Hey guys, Unit 1, Day 3. I wanted to respond specifically to things that Rosa and Sarah brought up in their video responses. I thought they were both really interesting things to think about. Got my brain spinning a little bit, thinking about some thoughts. Rosa brought up a lot of stuff in regards to privacy and desensitization that we experience through the use of social media. And one of the things that she was talking about also was harassment, in that when you are under the guise of anonymity on the internet using, whatever you want your profile to look like, you can theoretically you can say whatever the heck you want to say. And this kind of behavior happens a lot within social media. A prominent example that I really want to use throughout this post is YouTube, and our reading also discussed YouTube as well. It's definitely an example of an archive for sure. It's a huge video archive based entirely off of user contribution. And Rosa talked about how things from the past can affect, your daily life, and it also affects the way that people do things now. I think it was I'm sorry, I don't remember which one you said this specifically, but how on Twitter they posted an ad for for a job position, and they used that as like a job application process. In the past, it used to be, way different. We're using Twitter for a lot of things that we probably wouldn't have thought Twitter would be used for. But, tying that into YouTube, one can go back into an individual or a user's YouTube, find something that's relatively damning in nature, and use that against them. Sometimes for good, sometimes, just for the sake of causing a stir. A really prominent example amongst the YouTube community who's kind of been circulating in the news as of late is a man by the name of Logan Paul. He has millions and millions of followers, subscribers on YouTube. Millions of people watch his YouTube videos. And recently he released a video in which he filmed in the suicide forest in Japan, which is a place where suicide is it happens very often there. And he used an actual deceased person, somebody who committed suicide. He used their body for footage. He filmed himself with the body. He filmed, how they found the body, things like that. It makes me uncomfortable just talking about it, but it's just this really like awful thing that he did for views. And I think that that's a very big example of how we can be desensitized to what most of us would think is common sense. You wouldn't exploit an actual body of somebody who committed suicide in possibly one of the worst moments of their life and post it on the internet for millions of people to see. And Logan Paul did face consequences through not only YouTube, but, the online community as well. Some would say that the consequences aren't as severe as they should have been, myself included, but it can affect you. The things that you post in your social media, the things that you develop as an archive for yourself can be sometimes taken advantage of. It can be dug up to be used against you. Sarah mentioned in her post that we're all searchable, and to a certain extent, some more than others, especially if you're a prominent person in society, like a celebrity or a politician or things like that. And it's again, I would use that to reiterate a point that I made in one of my earlier discussion posts, and that it's healthy to have a certain amount of skepticism when you're observing content on the internet, or observing content in general, you know, not just internet content, but content from television, content from what you experience in, you know, life. Because while you might have that false sense of anonymity through being online, there are instances in which people face the consequences of doing horrible things, you know? So I think that that's something to consider when thinking about the boundaries of things. Like, when is the line crossed? When is it too far? You know, while it may be really easy to see negativity in what social media has to offer, there are still examples of people who stand up and say, no, that's not right, who stand up and try and make a difference. I would say that net neutrality is another big issue that would apply to, but I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to stray too far. Another thing that I wanted to bring up was virtual museums versus, you know, actual physical museums. I think that it's really great that this art is accessible through anybody with an internet connection. I think that that gives art an ability to touch as many people as possible. And an artist cannot control the way in which their work is perceived. So yes, it might open it up to negative attention or negative criticism as opposed to positive, but at the same time, art is fundamentally good for society. I think that making it accessible to as many people as possible is a good thing, ultimately. And I also believe that museums and archives who make their artworks public and digitized, I believe that their ultimate intention is to draw people in to actually visit those artworks in person, to experience those things in person. I believe that that is their ultimate goal. And I also believe that that is why the preservation of physical artworks, physical media, is still important, despite the fact that everything is digitized and easily searchable on the internet. It's meant to introduce you to something, but it's not always meant to give you the full experience. You can try as much as possible to convey the full experience of something like a painting, like Mona Lisa, for example. I can assure you that seeing the Mona Lisa in person is nothing like seeing it digitized through a computer screen. And I believe, again, that the ultimate goal is to get you to see that and to experience that and have that life experience that probably also the artist would have wanted as well. Another thing that I also wanted to talk about was Sarah brought up how technology is anthropomorphized. That's a hard word. Anthropomorphized to basically make it seem more human, like Siri. Alexa was another example that she used. I think that while that might be a scary thought, while it's a little uncanny to see human characteristics in technology, I also believe that the purpose of things like Siri, like Google, are to be easily accessible. Easily accessible is something that a lot of companies try to be. And humans, as humans, we connect the most immediately to other human beings. And the more human characteristics something carries, the more easily accessible it is, the more easy it is to use, and the more successful it can be. So while it might be a little freaky to think about how Google archives you and your user statistics and, you know, what it is that you search for, sometimes the photos that you take, the photos that you upload, those are things that you give Google consent to do. At least that's what they have us believe. Not to get all conspiracy theorist, but to a certain extent, you have privacy. I think I'm straying from what I'm trying to say. As when it comes to anthropomorphizing things, I believe that that is for the sake of making them more accessible and making them more easy to use. And yeah, it can be a little scary to think about, the fact that your Google Home speaker can listen to you at theoretically any time. It's also kind of fascinating to think about when you have this thing that 10 years ago used to just be a thing. Now it's a thing that you can talk to. It's a thing that will reply to you. It's a thing that'll theoretically make your life easier. It'll organize things for you. It'll answer your questions. It'll be of service to you. So I think that that is quite interesting, quite fascinating, quite scary, but I think it's also, a good scary. I hope. I choose to be optimistic about it. Anyway, thank you guys for listening, for contributing. I look forward to what else everybody says in the future. Bye.